Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this film, we're going to look at another Dr. Seuss book. Now, I don't own this currently. It's on my list. This is one of my favorites. This is actually Dr. Seuss's favorites of his books. And as opposed to some of his other books, this has a point. So the other book that so far, as of this video, I've done is The Grinch Stole Christmas. Another book that has a point. So this is the Lorax. So in this story, you have a little, basically, your narrator is being told a story by the Onceler, who says how he came up. Basically, you're in this kind of deserted area that's smoggy and dark, and there's nothing there except for this weird little stump that says unless. And you're told to ask the Onceler what happened to the Lorax. So Onceler tells the story of how he came to this land that was covered in these beautiful trees and these little bear-like creatures and fish and birds, and essentially it's a whole nature thing. And he saw how wonderful these trees were, and he set up camp, chopped down a tree, and started making something out of it. Started knitting something out of it. And then the Lorax popped up out of the stump of the tree. He said, "I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees, and why did you chop one down to make nonsense?" And the Onceler said, "Well, somebody's going to buy nonsense. I didn't do any harm. I just chopped down one tree." And the Lorax is angry because it's like, you chopped down a tree for nonsense, and then somebody bought it. And then the Onceler tells the story of how he invited his entire family and built a factory and slowly started chopping down trees and creating more, and the Lorax showed up. And they created smog. It's like the Lorax says, "I also speak for these bear thingies. And I have to send them away because there's no more food left because you chopped down so many trees." And the Onceler doesn't care. And he keeps on going. And then the Lorax comes back and it's like, "You've smogged up everything. And you can't really breathe." And they're coughing. "And the birds that were here, I have to send away, and I don't know how far they're going to have to fly in order to find clean air because you've polluted." And again, the Onceler doesn't care. And the Lorax comes back and he says, "The basically runoff from your massive factory has destroyed and been dumped into this pond, and I have to send the fish away, and they may die because they have no place to be, and you've pretty much polluted their home." And the Onceler gets mad and yells and screams, and it's like, "You're horrible, go away," and nobody cares, and it's kind of horrible. And then they hear a sound of the last tree being chopped down, and the factory closes down, and all his aunts and uncles and family go away because there's no more money to be made. And then the Lorax gives him a look, a very sad little look, and basically picks himself up by the suit of his pants and disappears through a thing in the fog. And the only thing that is left is a stump with the words "unless," which makes no sense. The Onceler says, and he sits there and he ponders as his factory falls apart and everything deteriorates around him. And then he says, "Here, take this." And he drops a seed into the hand of the young boy that he's telling this to. He said, "This is the last of the tupela trees," and that's what the trees that were. "And this is the last seed. And I've sat here and pondered about what was done. And now I understand what unless means. It's unless somebody cares an awful lot." And let's see, what's the entire line? Because this is Susan's blank. Yes, this entirely has a point. Where on earth is this? So let's see. Yes, "unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not." And that's the end of the short little picture book that I borrowed from the library. I do intend to buy it. It is a classic. And essentially the entire message, and this is based on, this is entirely intentional. This is not subterfuge. Seuss meant to basically say, we have to pay attention, we're destroying the environment. And buying nonsense. So if you remember from the Grinch Stole Christmas, this follows along the same kind of theme of Seuss's beliefs, that we're becoming obsessed with consumerism. And in this one, it focuses on we're destroying the environment. We're cutting down all these trees. We're polluting our waters. We're polluting our airs. And unless we care an awful lot, it's not going to stop and it's not going to get better. So I love this book. And I did, I think it's a TV special is what I'm going to cover, because that's what I remember. They apparently create some sort of god-awful film. But yeah, there's a 1972 animated special for this. So this is the TV special, which is a cartoon, which is what I remember. And I'm going to see if I can cover it. It pretty much follows the story exactly. So, and that's what I remember. Apparently there's a 2012 film and there's a play. So, and yeah. So it's a very simple book. I read it on ebook form. Don't do that. Don't do that. Buy a physical copy of this book. I'm not going to go over it. It's similar to the, what book is it? One of the other books that I covered. So far, I've covered 3 picture books on here. Only one does well in ebook form. The previous ones are both, I believe, February. They're Asian. So they just don't, picture books do not do good in ebook form. I borrowed it from the library because I just don't have a chance to buy it at this moment. It's on my list to get. I'm probably going to try to look for a used copy at a used book sale at some point, because it's very, very popular. And the Lorax is a wonderful story to talk about environmentalism. And it's not hiding anything. Seuss was very, very pointed in what he was telling. He's not wrong. I mean, he's really not wrong. We're destroying our planet. The temperatures are going up. The storms are getting more severe. Species are going extinct left and right. And that's kind of the point of this story. And it's sad. It's like you realize that we're cutting down all the bloody trees, and native species have nowhere to go. And we're polluting our waters, and we're polluting our polluting our air. And it's said, one of the things I found in the end of this is that people think it might be inspired by the Monterey cypress tree in La Jolla, California, which I'm guessing they cut all the trees down and built, La Jolla, California, which is part of San Diego. So yeah, apparently there was one tree left in all of La Jolla, and it was, according to this, reported to have fallen. But this is an environmental story. There's not much else to it. It's a wonderful story to explain to children in simple terms the destruction of nature and how we're destroying our environment. So I really do recommend this story. If you're talking about environmentalism, particularly little kids, this is the ideal thing the ideal story to tell. It's a great book. It's Seuss at his best. Similar to The Grinch Stole Christmas, these are very, very important stories to tell. So that's really it. I did a whole introduction about Dr. Seuss and how to read him. I will mention there's been controversy around him, but as compared to, say, someone like Roald Dahl, Seuss changed in his lifetime. That's what makes it different. That's what makes him different from Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl was probably very, very racist and possibly anti-Semitic throughout his entire life. Seuss wasn't. Seuss changed and accepted that some of his books, warns that this is being filmed in 2021. A couple months ago, a lot of the publishing companies decided to stop publishing them, and people were having a hissy fit about several of the books. But from what I was able to research, and as I mentioned in my first video, this is something that Seuss probably would have been happy about, because he changed. And you see that in the Lorax and the Grinch Stole Christmas, I think there's a couple of other books where he's making a point. And in this case, consumerism is pointless and it destroys things. Mainly that's the point of the Grinch Stole Christmas too, which are literally two of my favorite books. So highly recommend this book, particularly for homeschool families. If you're covering environmentalism, particularly with little kids, this is a good book to show them because it talks in a language that they can understand. Yes, it's Seuss. A lot of the stuff doesn't make sense because it's in his own little world. But it's a good way to teach children about environmental studies on their level. A way they can understand, as simple as a man came to an area covered in trees, built a factory, polluted everything and cut all the trees, and they're gone. And there's this one little seed left. And it's our responsibility as the next generation to do something. It's like, do you care? Do you care enough to take care of the planet? To speak, to vote, to do something? You have to care an awful lot. Because unless somebody cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. So that is it for this review. Be sure to check out the rest of my book reviews. I do a lot of children's book reviews. I have covered some of Roald Dahl because he's a classic. I've covered and plan to cover more Seuss. Seuss's books, depending, some are complicated, some are not. I cover various other educational resources, some travel videos, and a bunch of other stuff. So like and subscribe if you like what you see, and take care of the planet. Please. Thank you.